The morning the princess disappeared from the palace, nobody noticed that the woman carrying dirty clothes through the back gate was not a servant. Nobody noticed the way she walked. Nobody noticed the confidence hidden behind her lowered eyes. Nobody noticed that beneath the simple brown dress and old sandals was the daughter of the most powerful king in the entire region. Her name was Princess Amara. For 22 years, she had lived inside golden walls, surrounded by luxury, servants, guards, and people who bowed whenever she entered a room. She had eaten the finest food, worn the most expensive clothes, and lived a life that millions of people could only dream about. But despite everything she owned, Princess Amara had always felt like something was missing. She had wealth, she had beauty, she had a royal title. But she did not have the one thing she wanted most: the truth. From the outside, everyone believed Princess Amara was the luckiest woman in the kingdom of Akwala. She was the only child of King Ezechi, a respected ruler who had led the kingdom for almost 30 years. Under his leadership, the kingdom had grown richer, stronger, and more respected by neighboring lands. People praised the king everywhere he went. They called him a wise leader. They called him a protector. They called him a father to his people. But inside the palace, Princess Amara saw a different side of him. She saw a man who was always surrounded by people, but rarely trusted anyone. She saw a father who loved her deeply, but was constantly afraid of losing control. And she saw a kingdom where many poor families struggled while wealthy nobles continued becoming richer. Every week, important people visited the palace carrying gifts. Merchants brought expensive fabrics. Chiefs brought gold. Businessmen brought rare treasures. Everyone wanted something from the king. Everyone wanted influence. Everyone wanted power. And Princess Amara began wondering whether people respected her family because they truly loved them or because they feared them. One evening, while sitting beside her father during a royal dinner, she watched a group of nobles laughing loudly. They were discussing a recent announcement about new taxes that would affect farmers across the kingdom. The nobles laughed because the taxes would increase their own profits. But Amara noticed something. The king was smiling. Everyone around him was smiling. Yet nobody was talking about the farmers who would struggle. Nobody was talking about families who might lose their homes. Nobody was talking about ordinary people. That night, Princess Amara could not sleep. She stood near her bedroom window, looking down at the city beyond the palace walls. The palace was bright. The streets outside were dark. Inside the palace, people celebrated. Outside, many people struggled. For the first time in her life, Amara wondered if she truly understood the kingdom she was supposed to lead one day. The next morning, she made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She would leave the palace, not forever, not to run away, but to discover the truth. She wanted to know what ordinary people really thought about the royal family. She wanted to know what life looked like outside the walls that protected her from reality. Most importantly, she wanted to know whether her father's kingdom was truly as peaceful as everyone claimed. When she shared her plan with her closest childhood friend, Nia, the young woman nearly dropped the tray she was holding. "Princess, you cannot be serious?" Nia whispered. Amara smiled slightly. "I have never been more serious." Nia looked around the room nervously. "What you are suggesting is dangerous?" "I know. If the king discovers this, he will never allow it." "I know." "Then why are you smiling?" Amara looked toward the palace gardens. "Because for the first time, I am doing something because of my own choice." Nia lowered her voice. "You are a princess. You do not need to live like ordinary people." Amara turned toward her. "That is exactly why I need to." Nia remained silent. Amara continued. "How can I become a good queen one day if I only know the world from inside this palace?" Those words stayed in Nia's mind. because deep down, she knew Amara was right. The princess had always been different from the other royals. She did not enjoy showing off. She did not insult servants. She did not believe her title made her better than anyone else. But leaving the palace was another matter. This was not a game. This was not a simple adventure. The world outside was unpredictable. People could be cruel. People could take advantage of weakness. And worst of all, enemies of the kingdom could discover who she truly was. But Amara had already made up her mind. That night, while the entire palace slept, Princess Amara removed every sign of royalty. She took off her expensive jewelry. She removed her silk dress. She placed her crown inside a wooden box. Then she wore the clothes of a servant girl. A simple, brown dress, a faded scarf, old sandals. When she looked into the mirror, she almost did not recognize herself. For the first time in her life, nobody looking at her would see a princess. They would only see a young woman. And that was exactly what she wanted. Before leaving, she wrote a letter to her father. She did not explain everything. She knew he would immediately send guards to find her. Instead, she wrote, "Father, I need to understand the people I will one day serve. I am not leaving because I hate this palace. I am leaving because I love this kingdom enough to know the truth." She placed the letter on his desk. Then she quietly walked through the hidden passage beneath the palace. It was a passage known only to members of the royal family, a secret escape route built hundreds of years earlier. Nobody saw her leave. Nobody stopped her. And before sunrise, Princess Amara was gone. The first place she went was the village of Luanda. It was only a few hours away from the capital, but it felt like a completely different world. The roads were rough. The houses were small. The people worked from sunrise until sunset just to survive. When Amara entered the village, nobody bowed. Nobody called her, "Your Highness." Nobody treated her differently. At first it felt strange. But then something unexpected happened. She felt free. A woman carrying baskets walked past her without even noticing her. Children played in the dirt. Farmers argued about crops. Families laughed together despite having very little. Amara watched everything carefully. This was the life she had never seen. Not because it did not exist, but because palace walls had hidden it from her. She walked through the village until she reached a small house where an elderly woman was struggling to carry a heavy bucket of water. Without thinking, "Allow me to help you." The woman looked surprised. "You?" Amara smiled. "Yes." The old woman laughed. "You look like someone who has never carried anything heavier than a plate." Amara smiled awkwardly. "Maybe you are right." But she still helped. The woman introduced herself as Mama Tola. She was a widow who lived alone after losing her husband many years earlier. She had no children nearby, no family to support her. Yet she welcomed Amara into her small home without asking questions. That was the first lesson Amara learned. A poor person with nothing could still have a generous heart. That evening, Mama Tola shared her food with the young stranger. The meal was simple, only beans and vegetables. But to Amara, it tasted different from the expensive meals inside the palace. Because for the first time, someone had given her food without wanting anything in return. "You are not from this village," Mama Tola said while watching her. Amara froze. "What makes you say that?" The old woman smiled. "Your hands." Amara looked down. "What about them?" "They are too soft." Amara quickly hid her hands. "I worked indoors." Mama Tola laughed. "That explains nothing." For a moment, Amara worried. Had the old woman discovered her secret? But Mama Tola only smiled. "Do not worry. Everyone has a story they do not want to tell." Those words surprised Amara. Because they were true. Everyone had secrets, including her. The next morning, Amara decided to find work. If she was going to understand ordinary life, she could not simply watch from a distance. She needed to experience it. She found a position helping at a local textile shop owned by a woman named Madame Zara. Madame Zara was known throughout the village as a hard-working but strict businesswoman. When Amara approached her, she looked the young woman up and down. "You want work?" "Yes. What can you do?" Amara paused. Inside the palace, she had studied history, politics, languages, and leadership. But those skills would not help her here. "I can learn quickly." Madame Zara smiled. "Everyone says that." "I mean it." The woman studied her for a moment. Then she nodded. "Start tomorrow." Amara thanked her, and just like that, the princess became a servant. She woke before sunrise. She cleaned. She carried materials. She worked long hours. Her back hurt. Her hands became rough. Her feet became tired. For the first time, she understood the meaning of physical exhaustion. But something surprised her. She was happy. Not because the work was easy. It was difficult, but because every achievement belonged to her. Nobody helped her because of her name. Nobody praised her because of her title. If she succeeded, it was because she earned it. If she failed, it was because she needed to improve. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, people in the village began accepting her. They knew her only as Mara, a young woman who came from another town looking for work. Nobody knew she was Princess Amara. Nobody knew she was the future ruler of Akwala. And nobody knew that the simple servant working beside them was secretly watching, learning, and discovering things that would change the kingdom forever. But while Amara was learning about ordinary life, someone inside the palace had discovered her disappearance. And that person was not happy. The moment King Ezeki found the letter on his desk, his heart stopped. At first he thought it was a mistake, then he read it again, and again. His hands began shaking. "My daughter is gone." The entire palace went into panic. Guards searched every room. Advisors were called immediately. The king demanded answers. How did nobody notice her leaving? Nobody had an answer. Because nobody expected a princess to walk away from everything she owned. But one person knew exactly why she had done it. The king's younger brother, Prince Kato. He stood quietly in the corner during the emergency meeting. While everyone looked worried, he looked different, almost satisfied. Because, unlike everyone else, he understood something. Princess Amara was not just missing. She was vulnerable, and if the kingdom believed the princess was gone, then the future of the throne had suddenly become uncertain. Prince Kato had waited many years for an opportunity. And now, he believed his opportunity had finally arrived. But he did not know one thing. The princess he thought had disappeared was not lost. She was somewhere nearby, learning, growing, and preparing to uncover secrets that would destroy the people who believed they had already won. The news of Princess Amara's disappearance spread through the palace faster than anyone expected. By midday, every important person in the kingdom knew that something unusual had happened. The official announcement was carefully written. It said that the princess had taken a short journey for personal reasons, and that the royal family was handling the matter privately. But inside the palace walls, everyone knew the truth. The future queen had vanished. King Ezeki locked himself inside his private chamber for hours. The same man who had faced wars, political attacks, and countless challenges as a ruler now sat alone with tears in his eyes. To the people, he was a powerful king. To Amara, he was simply her father. And that was why her disappearance hurt him more than any enemy ever could. "I failed her?" he whispered. His most trusted advisor, Elder Chuka, stood quietly nearby. "Your Majesty, you did everything you believed was right." The king looked up. "Did I?" The old advisor remained silent. King Ezeki walked toward the window overlooking the city. "I gave her everything, the finest education, the safest home, the best teachers. Yet somehow, I still failed to show her the world." Elder Chuka carefully chose his words. Sometimes protecting someone too much prevents them from understanding what they are being protected from. The king lowered his head, because deep down, he knew those words were true. For years, he had protected Amara from hardship, but perhaps he had also protected her from reality. Meanwhile, Prince Cato was using the confusion to his advantage. Unlike the king, he did not see Amara's disappearance as a tragedy. He saw it as an opportunity. For many years, he had lived in his brother's shadow. Whenever people spoke about the future of the kingdom, they mentioned Princess Amara, the intelligent daughter, the beloved princess, the future queen. Nobody talked about him. Nobody asked about his ambitions. Nobody cared about his plans, and every year that bitterness grew stronger. That evening, Prince Cato met secretly with 3 powerful nobles inside a private room away from the palace servants. The room was dark except for the light from several candles. "We cannot allow uncertainty to continue," one nobleman said. Prince Cato smiled. "Uncertainty is exactly what creates opportunity." The nobleman looked confused. "What are you suggesting?" Cato leaned forward. "The kingdom needs stability. The people need leadership." "Are you saying the king should step down?" Prince Cato smiled. "Not yet." The men exchanged nervous looks. "But if something happens to the king, and the princess remains missing?" "Go." He allowed the sentence to remain unfinished. Everyone understood what he meant. The throne would become available, and Prince Cato intended to claim it. But while people inside the palace were making dangerous plans, Princess Amara was experiencing a completely different reality. Life in the village was changing her. At first, the villagers treated her like a stranger. They were polite but cautious. After all, outsiders often came to villages with hidden intentions. But Amara slowly earned their trust. She helped farmers organize their supplies. She taught children basic reading skills. She assisted elderly people who struggled with daily tasks. And most importantly, she listened. That was something many powerful people forgot to do. They spoke, they commanded, they instructed. But they rarely listened. Amara listened to everyone. She listened to mothers worried about feeding their children. She listened to farmers struggling with unfair prices. She listened to young people who wanted opportunities but had no support. Every conversation taught her something new. One afternoon, while working at Madame Zara's textile shop, Amara noticed a young boy standing outside staring at colorful fabrics. The boy looked about 8 years old. His clothes were old and his shoes were damaged. Amara walked toward him. "Do you like that fabric?" The boy quickly stepped back. "I was only looking." "You don't have to be afraid." The boy looked down. "My mother used to make clothes." "What happened?" The boy became quiet. "She became sick. Now she cannot work." Amara's expression softened. "What is your name?" "Emika." "Where is your mother?" He pointed toward a small house near the edge of the village. After work, Amara followed him. Inside the small house, she found a woman lying on a thin mattress. The woman looked weak. Emeka explained that his mother had been sick for months, but could not afford proper treatment. Amara felt something heavy in her chest. In the palace, she had heard reports about healthcare problems. She had read documents. She had listened to officials. But seeing it with her own eyes was different. This was not a report. This was someone's mother, someone's family, someone's life. That night, Amara could not sleep. She kept thinking about Emeka and his mother. The next morning, she used the small amount of money she had saved from her work and paid for medicine. It was not much. It would not solve every problem, but it helped. When Emeka's mother began recovering, the family thanked Amara repeatedly. "You are not like other people who come here?" the woman said. Amara smiled. "What do you mean?" "Some people come pretending to care, but they only want something from us." Those words stayed with Amara, because she understood exactly what the woman meant. Many people in power claim to serve others, but their actions showed something different. Several months earlier, Amara would have defended the royal family immediately. Now, she understood that good intentions were not enough. A leader had to know the struggles of the people. A leader had to experience their reality. A leader had to care even when nobody was watching. Meanwhile, back at the palace, King Ezichi continued searching. He sent trusted guards across the kingdom. He questioned travelers. He searched nearby villages. But there was one place nobody considered, the village of Luanda, because nobody believed a princess would choose to live among ordinary workers. One evening, the king sat with Elder Chuka discussing the search. "We have looked everywhere." The advisor nodded. "Perhaps she does not want to be found." The king looked hurt. "Why would my own daughter hide from me?" Elder Chuka answered carefully. "Maybe she is not hiding from you." "Then what?" "Maybe she is searching for herself." The king became quiet, because that possibility frightened him. What if Amara returned one day and realized she no longer wanted the life waiting for her? What if she discovered the palace was not where she belonged? Those thoughts troubled him deeply. But another person was becoming increasingly nervous. Prince Kato. Weeks had passed. The princess had not returned. The king had not stepped down. And rumors were beginning to spread. Some people wondered whether Amara had left because she disagreed with the royal family. Others believed something terrible had happened. Prince Kato knew he needed to act carefully. He could not openly challenge the king. Not yet. So he decided to attack something else. The people's trust. He began spreading small rumors. Nothing obvious. Nothing that could be traced back to him. He encouraged conversations like, "Perhaps the princess is not ready to rule. Maybe the kingdom needs a stronger leader. Maybe someone older should take responsibility." Slowly, doubts began appearing. And that was exactly what Prince Kato wanted. A kingdom that loses faith in its future leader becomes vulnerable. But he underestimated one thing. Princess Amara was becoming stronger every day. One afternoon, while working at the textile shop, a group of wealthy merchants arrived in the village. They were buying fabrics from different sellers. One looked at Amara carefully. "You are new here?" Amara nodded. "Yes." "You work hard." "Thank you." The merchant smiled. "Most young women your age are interested in comfort." Amara replied calmly. "Comfort is easy to enjoy when you have earned it." The merchant laughed. "That is a wise answer." He did not know how true those words were, because the woman standing before him was not just a hard-working servant. She was someone who had abandoned comfort to discover wisdom. Later that evening, Madame Zara sat beside Amara outside the shop. "You are different." Amara smiled. "Everyone keeps saying that." "Because it is true?" The older woman looked at the young woman carefully. "You have the manners of someone important." Amara became nervous. "What makes you say that?" Madame Zara laughed. "Your speech, your confidence, the way you carry yourself." Amara looked away. "Maybe I was raised well." Madame Zara nodded. "Maybe." Then she became serious. "But everyone has a past. One day, yours will find you." Amara looked at the sunset. She knew that day would come. She knew eventually she would have to return. But she was not the same person who left the palace. The girl who walked away from the throne wanted answers. The woman standing in the village now understood responsibility. And soon, the entire kingdom would discover that their missing princess had been closer than anyone imagined. However, before Amara could reveal herself, danger was moving closer. Because Prince Kato had received information that changed everything. Spy working outside the capital had discovered rumors about a young woman living in Luanda. A woman who spoke like royalty. A woman who understood politics. A woman who seemed far too educated to be an ordinary servant. Prince Cato read the report carefully. Then he smiled. Find her. The spy bowed. And if it is who we think it is? Prince Cato looked toward the palace windows. Then the princess has made my work much easier. He folded the paper and placed it on the table. Bring her back. The spy hesitated. Alive. Prince Cato looked at him. After a long silence, he answered, That depends on what she knows. And at that moment, the greatest danger of Princess Amara's journey had begun, because discovering the truth about her kingdom was only the beginning. Now she had to survive the people who wanted that truth to remain hidden forever. The next few days in Luanda felt strangely peaceful to Princess Amara. She woke before sunrise, just like everyone else in the village. The sound of farmers preparing their tools, women sweeping the front of their homes, and children running through the dusty roads became her new morning song. Months earlier, she would have woken up to palace musicians and servants waiting outside her room. Now, she woke up because life was happening around her, and surprisingly, she loved it. She had discovered something important. A simple life did not mean an unhappy life. Many people in the village had very little money, but they had something many wealthy people lacked. They had community. They had people who checked on them. They had neighbors who shared food when someone was struggling. They had laughter even during difficult times. The palace had been filled with expensive furniture, beautiful decorations, and endless luxury. But sometimes it had felt lonely. Here, inside a small village house, Amara felt more connected to people than she ever had before. However, she also discovered something painful. The kindness of ordinary people was not enough to erase the problems they faced. Every day, she saw struggles that she could no longer ignore. Farmers worked from morning until night, yet middlemen controlled the prices of their crops. Young people had dreams but lacked opportunities. Families avoided hospitals because they feared bills they could not pay. Children with intelligence were forced to leave school because their parents could not afford books. The more Amara learned, the more uncomfortable she became, because she realized something. The kingdom did not suffer because people were lazy. The kingdom suffered because many systems were unfair, and those systems were protected by powerful people. One afternoon, while helping Madame Zara organize fabrics, Amara overheard two farmers arguing outside. The taxes have increased again, one man complained. I know, another replied. How are we supposed to survive? Or Amara stopped working. Taxes. The farmers noticed her listening. One of them sighed. You are new here, so maybe you don't know. Know what? The older farmer looked toward the palace direction. The people in the capital keep making decisions about our lives without understanding our struggles. Those words hurt Amara, because she knew exactly who he was talking about. The government. The palace. Her own family. She wanted to defend her father. She wanted to say that the king was not cruel. But she stopped herself. Because the man was not attacking her father personally. He was describing his reality. And a true leader had to listen to reality even when it was uncomfortable. That evening, Amara sat outside Mama Tola's house, watching the stars. The old woman noticed her silence. You are thinking too much. Amara smiled slightly. How did you know? Because people who carry responsibility always look troubled. Amara looked at her. You think I carry responsibility? Mama Tola laughed softly. Everyone carries something. She pointed toward the village. The farmer carries his family. The mother carries her children. The old person carries memories. Then she looked at Amara. And you carry something you are not telling me? Amara became quiet. For months, she had avoided telling anyone who she really was. Not because she wanted to lie, but because she wanted to experience life without people treating her differently. Yet Mama Tola's words made her wonder. How long could she continue hiding? Before she could answer, a sudden noise came from the village entrance. Several strangers had arrived. At first, nobody paid attention. Visitors came often. Merchants, travelers, workers. But something about these men felt different. They were not dressed like ordinary travelers. They moved carefully, they watched everything, and they asked too many questions. One of them entered Madame Zara's shop. "Good afternoon." Madame Zara looked up. "Good afternoon. We are looking for a young woman." Madame Zara frowned. "There are many young women here." The man smiled. "Her name is Mara." Amara, who was arranging fabrics in the back room, froze. Her heart began beating faster. Nobody outside the village knew her name as Mara. Only the people here. Only the villagers. Why were strangers looking for her? Madame Zara noticed Amara's expression. She immediately understood something was wrong. "Why are you looking for her?" The man looked around. "She is wanted for questioning." "Questioning about what?" The man smiled. "That is not your concern." Madame Zara's face became serious. "Anyone who works for me is my concern." The man stepped closer. "Madam, we do not want problems." Amara quietly moved deeper into the shop. She knew she could not stay hidden forever. But she needed time. The strangers left after several minutes. But everyone in the village felt the tension. That evening, Madame Zara locked the shop earlier than usual. She looked at Amara. "Who are you?" Amara remained silent. The older woman sighed. "I knew something was different about you." Amara looked down. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not telling you the truth." Madame Zara crossed her arms. "Then tell me now." Amara took a deep breath. "My real name is Princess Amara." The room became completely silent. Madame Zara stared at her. For several moments, she did not speak. Then she laughed. A short, confused laugh. "You expect me to believe that?" Amara slowly removed the small necklace she had hidden beneath her clothes. It was the only royal item she had kept, a golden symbol of the Akwala royal family. Madame Zara's expression changed immediately. She had seen that symbol before. Everyone had. It was printed on official documents, carved into government buildings, recognized throughout the kingdom. She stepped backward. "Your Highness." Amara quickly raised her hand. "Please." Madame Zara looked shocked. "Why are you here?" Amara answered honestly. "I wanted to understand my people." The older woman stared at her. "You left the palace?" "Yes." "Why?" Amara looked toward the door. "Because I was afraid I was becoming the kind of ruler who knew everything except the truth." Madame Zara remained quiet. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled. Not because she was impressed, because she understood. "You are either very brave or very foolish." Amara laughed softly. "Maybe both." "Does anyone else know?" "Who?" "Only you." The older woman sighed. "Then you are in danger." Amara nodded. "I know." "No." Madame Zara replied. "You don't." She looked serious. "People like us can lose everything when powerful people fight." Amara understood what she meant. Ordinary people often became victims of conflicts between powerful individuals. And now, her identity could bring danger to everyone around her. That night, Madame Zara did not sleep. She knew the secret she had discovered was bigger than herself. Meanwhile, at the palace, Prince Kato received another message. The spy had confirmed the truth. The missing princess was alive, and she was living in Luanda. Prince Kato smiled. For months, he had wondered where Amara had disappeared. Now he knew. But something bothered him. The report described the princess differently from how he remembered her. The spy wrote, "She works like a common person. She helps villagers. She does not behave like royalty." Prince Kato read the sentence several times. Because he understood the danger. A spoiled princess would be easy to defeat. A princess loved by ordinary people would not. He immediately summoned his closest advisor. "We need to bring her back." The advisor nodded. "Should we tell the king?" Prince Cato looked at him coldly. Not yet. Why? Because if the king knows she is alive, he will protect her. The advisor understood. And if she returns? Prince Cato smiled. Then she becomes the future queen again. Exactly. And that cannot happen. The advisor lowered his voice. What will you do? Prince Cato walked toward the window. I will make sure the kingdom believes she is not ready to rule. The advisor looked confused. How? Prince Cato turned around. By showing them what happens when a princess chooses to abandon her responsibilities. The plan was simple. He would convince the people that Amara had rejected them. That she had run away because palace life was difficult. That she cared more about her own feelings than the kingdom. And once the people lost faith in her, Prince Cato would present himself as the only stable option. But there was one thing he did not understand. The longer Amara stayed away from the palace, the stronger she became. She was no longer just a princess. She was becoming a leader. The next morning, Madame Zara woke Amara before sunrise. We have to leave. Amara sat up quickly. Why? Because those men will return. Amara looked worried. Where will we go? Madame Zara hesitated. There is someone who may help us. Ooh. The older woman looked toward the distant hills. Someone who knows the truth about the kingdom. Later that morning, Amara followed Madame Zara beyond the village. They walked through forests and narrow paths until they reached a small house hidden away from the main road. An elderly man sat outside reading. When he saw Madame Zara, his expression changed. You brought her. Amara stopped. The man looked directly at her. Not at her clothes. Not at her disguise. At her. You are Princess Amara. Her heart froze. How do you know? The old man smiled sadly. Because I was one of the people who helped raise you. Amara looked confused. What? The man slowly stood. My name is Elder Bako. The name sounded familiar. Then suddenly, Amara remembered. As a child, there had been an old royal advisor who disappeared from the palace after disagreeing with certain decisions. Everyone said he retired, but nobody knew where he went. You were my father's advisor. The old man nodded. I was. Why did you leave? His expression became serious. Because I discovered something dangerous. Amara stepped closer. What? Elder Bako looked toward the palace in the distance. The people closest to the throne are not always the people who want the kingdom to succeed. A cold feeling moved through Amara. Are you talking about someone specific? The old man looked at her. Your uncle. Silence filled the room. Prince Cato. The man who had always smiled politely. The man who attended every royal ceremony. The man everyone believed was loyal. Amara shook her head. No. Elder Bako sighed. That is the problem with betrayal. He looked at her sadly. It rarely comes from strangers. Before Amara could respond, a loud noise came from outside. Everyone turned. Several horses were approaching. Madame Zara looked through the window. They found us. Elder Bako's expression changed. Then there is no more time. Amara looked at him. What do I do? The old man looked directly into her eyes. You return to the palace. Amara shook her head. Not yet. You don't understand. He stepped closer. The battle you ran away from has followed you here. Outside, the footsteps grew louder. The enemy had arrived. And this time, Princess Amara could no longer hide. The sound of horses approaching became louder with every passing second. The peaceful silence that had surrounded Elder Bako's hidden home disappeared. The birds stopped singing. The wind moved through the trees. Everyone inside the small house understood one thing. They had been found. Madame Zara looked at Amara with worry in her eyes. What are we going to do? Amara stood still. For months, she had faced difficult situations. She had carried heavy baskets. She had worked long hours. She had watched families struggle. But this was different. This was no longer about learning. This was about survival. Elder Bako walked toward the back of the house and opened a small wooden chest. Inside were old documents, royal seals, and letters that looked like they had been carefully protected for many years. Amara stared at them. "What are those?" The old man looked at her. "The truth." Before Amara could ask another question, the door shook. Someone outside shouted, "Open this door." Madame Zara became nervous. "They know we are here." Elder Bako calmly placed the documents inside a cloth bag. "Good." Amara looked confused. "Good?" The old man nodded. "Sometimes the truth must come out when people are ready to hear it." The door shook again, this time harder. Amara looked around. There must be another way out. Elder Bako shook his head. "No." "Why not?" "Because running again will only delay what must happen." Amara became silent. The old man's words were difficult to accept. For months, she had been hiding to discover the truth. Now the truth was forcing her to stand. She took a deep breath. Then she removed the scarf covering her hair. Madame Zara looked surprised. "What are you doing?" Amara looked toward the door. "I am done pretending." Those words carried something different. The woman who had entered the village as a servant was gone. The princess had returned. Elder Bako smiled proudly. "No, you look like your father." Amara looked at him. "Is that a compliment?" The old man smiled sadly. "It is a reminder." "Of what?" "That being a ruler is not about wearing a crown." He pointed toward her heart. "It is about carrying the suffering of others." The door suddenly opened. Several armed men entered. At the front was a tall man wearing royal clothing. He looked at Amara. For a moment, surprise crossed his face. Then he smiled. "Princess Amara." Nobody spoke. The man bowed slightly. "After all this time, we finally meet." Amara studied him carefully. "You work for my uncle." The man smiled. "I work for the royal family." "That is not what I ask." The man's smile disappeared slightly. "My name is Commander Darius." Amara recognized the name. He was one of Prince Kato's most trusted soldiers, a man known for his loyalty. Or at least, that was what everyone believed. "Why are you here?" Amara asked. Commander Darius looked around. "What came to bring you home?" Amara did not believe him. "If that were true, you would have sent my father." The commander remained silent. That silence answered everything. Madame Zara stepped forward. "You expect us to believe this is a simple rescue." Darius looked at her. "Stay out of royal matters." Amara immediately moved between them. "She is under my protection." The commander raised an eyebrow. "Protection?" "Yes." "You are a princess protecting a villager." Amara looked directly at him. "That is exactly what a leader should do." The commander stared at her. For a brief moment, something changed in his expression. Because he expected a frightened young woman. Instead, he found someone who sounded like a ruler. But he quickly recovered. "Your father wants you back," Amara asked. "Does he know you are here?" Another silence. Again, the answer was obvious. "No." Commander Darius looked away. Amara's heart sank. So this was not a mission from her father. It was from Prince Kato. "What does my uncle want?" The commander said nothing. Elder Bako stepped forward. "She already knows." Darius looked at him. "You should have stayed hidden, old man." Elder Bako laughed. "Hidden?" He shook his head. "I spent years hidden because I believed the truth would eventually protect itself." He looked at Amara. "But I was wrong." The commander became impatient. "Take the princess." The soldiers moved forward. But before they reached her, Amara spoke. "Stop." Something about her voice made them hesitate. She was not shouting. She was not begging. She was commanding. Even dressed in simple clothes, she carried the authority of someone born to lead. The soldiers looked at Commander Darius. Amara continued. "You came here because you believe you have power." The commander stared at her. "But power without truth is only fear." Nobody moved. Amara stepped forward. "You can take me back." Madame Zara looked shocked. Princess, Amara raised her hand. But before I return, I want answers. The commander frowned. You are not in a position to demand anything. Amara smiled slightly. That is where you are wrong. She looked around the room. The people you think are powerless are the ones who know the truth. Elder Bucko watched her proudly. The commander studied her carefully. Then he made a decision. Take them all. The soldiers moved. But suddenly, one soldier stopped. Commander. Everyone looked at him. The young soldier looked uncomfortable. We cannot do this. Darius turned sharply. What did you say? The soldier lowered his weapon. I said we cannot. The commander walked toward him. Explain yourself. The soldier swallowed. My family lives in Luanda. Everyone became quiet. He continued. I know these people. I know what they have suffered. I know Princess Amara has been helping them. Darius looked angry. You forget your duty. The soldier shook his head. No, he looked at Amara. I remember my duty. The commander stared at him. The kingdom's duty is to protect the people. More soldiers began lowering their weapons. Commander Darius realized something dangerous. The princess had done something he never expected. She had gained loyalty without demanding it. She had earned respect without using her title. And that made her far more dangerous than he thought. After a long silence, Darius stepped backward. This is not finished. He looked at Amara. When you return to the palace, you will discover that the throne is not waiting for you. Then he turned and left. The soldiers followed. The moment they disappeared into the forest, everyone released the breath they had been holding. Madame Zara looked at Amara. You knew they would leave. Amara shook her head. No? Then why did you stand like that? Amara looked down. Because I realized something. What? I spent my entire life thinking leadership came from being obeyed. She looked toward the road where the soldiers had disappeared. But today I learned that leadership comes from being trusted. Elder Bako smiled. Now you are ready. Amara turned toward him. Ready for what? The old man picked up the cloth bag containing the documents. To return home. That evening, they began preparing for the journey back to the capital. But before leaving, Amara wanted to say goodbye to the people who had changed her life. When she entered the village, nobody knew what to say. The news had already spread. Everyone knew Mara was actually Princess Amara. The same young woman who had worked beside them. The same person who had carried water. The same person who had helped their families. Children gathered around her. Adults watched quietly. Amara felt nervous. She wondered if they would feel betrayed. After all, she had hidden her identity. But then something unexpected happened. Mama Tola walked toward her. The old woman looked at her for a long moment. Then she smiled. I knew you were different. Amara laughed softly. You knew? Mama Tola nodded. Of course. How? Oh, because no ordinary person carries themselves like someone with a great purpose. Amara hugged her. For the first time in many months, she allowed herself to cry. Mama Tola held her tightly. You came here looking for the people, she whispered. But the people found you. Those words stayed with Amara. The next morning, she left Luanda. Not as a hidden servant, not as a confused princess, but as someone who finally understood her responsibility. The journey back to the palace was filled with mixed emotions. Part of her was excited to see her father. Another part was afraid, because she knew returning meant facing everything she had avoided. The crown, the politics, the expectations, the enemies, and the uncle who wanted her gone. When they finally reached the capital, the city changed immediately. People noticed the royal guards. They noticed Elder Boko, and soon rumors spread. The princess had returned. The palace gates opened. King Ezechi was informed immediately. At first, he refused to believe it. She is alive. The messenger nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. The king stood so quickly that his chair almost fell. Where is she? At the entrance. The king did not wait for anyone. He ran. For the first time in years, the people of the palace saw their king move not as a ruler, but as a father. When he reached the entrance, he saw her, the daughter he thought he had lost. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the king walked toward her, and he hugged her. Not a royal embrace. A father's embrace? I thought I lost you. Amara closed her eyes. I'm sorry, father. The king stepped back. Why did you leave? Amara looked at him. Because I was afraid I would become a ruler who did not understand the people. The king became quiet. Then he looked at her clothes. The simple dress, the worn sandals. The hands that were no longer soft, and he understood. She had not abandoned the kingdom. She had discovered it. But their reunion was interrupted. A slow clap echoed from behind them. Everyone turned. Prince Cato stood near the palace entrance, smiling. How touching. The king's expression changed. Cato. Prince Cato walked forward. Your daughter returns after disappearing for months, and everyone celebrates. But nobody asks the important question. The king frowned. What question? Cato smiled. Where has she been? Silence filled the courtyard. Prince Cato continued. Because while everyone believes she was discovering the struggles of ordinary people, perhaps she was simply running away from responsibility. Amara looked at him calmly. I was learning. Cato laughed. Learning. He looked at the gathered nobles. A future queen cannot disappear whenever life becomes difficult. The nobles exchanged uncertain looks. Enough. But Cato continued. No, brother. He looked directly at Amara. The kingdom deserves to know if their future ruler is truly prepared. Amara realized immediately. This was not just an argument. It was a challenge. Prince Cato wanted to turn her return into a weakness. But he did not know what she had learned. He did not know the people she had met. He did not know the truth she carried. And most importantly, he did not know that Elder Bako had brought proof. Proof that could change everything, because hidden inside that old cloth bag were documents that revealed a secret buried for years. A secret about Prince Cato, a secret about the royal family, and a secret that would determine who truly deserved the throne. The palace courtyard became completely silent after Prince Cato's accusation. Everyone was watching. The servants, the guards, the nobles, even the citizens who had gathered outside the palace gates, hoping to see the returned princess. For months, people had wondered where Princess Amara had gone. Now she was standing before them again. But instead of a joyful celebration, she had returned to a battle for trust, a battle for the future of the kingdom. Prince Cato looked confident. He believed he had already won. He believed Amara's absence had weakened her. He believed the people would question whether she was truly prepared to rule. But he did not understand what had changed. The princess who left the palace was searching for answers. The princess who returned already had them. King Ezeki looked at his brother with disappointment. Cato, my daughter has just returned. This is not the time for accusations. Prince Cato smiled. I am only asking questions, brother. No. The king's voice became stronger. You are creating suspicion. Cato looked around. Is suspicion wrong when the future of the kingdom is involved? Nobody answered. Because everyone knew there was some truth in his words. A ruler's actions affected thousands of lives, and Prince Cato knew exactly how to manipulate that fear. Amara stepped forward. Uncle, if you have questions. The king looked at her. Amara. But she continued. I have nothing to hide. Prince Cato smiled. Very well. He walked closer. Where did you go? To Luanda. Murmurs immediately spread through the crowd. The nobles looked surprised. Luanda, the poor village. Prince Cato raised his eyebrows. And why would a princess go there? Amara looked at the people around her. Because I wanted to understand the people I will one day serve. Cato laughed softly. How noble. His voice carried sarcasm. But did you consider what your disappearance caused? Amara remained silent. He continued. The kingdom was confused. The people were worried. The palace was forced to search for you. He looked at the crowd. A future ruler cannot simply walk away. Those words affected some people. Amara noticed. This was exactly what he wanted. He wanted everyone to focus on her leaving. Not why she left. Not what she discovered. Only the mistake. But Amara had learned something important. A leader could not allow others to control the story. She looked directly at Prince Cato. You are right. Everyone became surprised. Even Cato, Amara continued. I should have informed more people before leaving. The king looked at her proudly. Because she was admitting her mistake. But that does not mean the reason I left was wrong. Prince Cato frowned. Amara turned toward the crowd. For many years, I lived inside this palace, believing I understood my kingdom. She paused. But I discovered that knowing the names of villages is not the same as knowing the people who live there. The crowd became quiet. I met farmers who work every day but still struggle to feed their families. She looked toward the nobles. I met mothers who avoid hospitals because they fear medical costs. She looked toward the young people standing outside the gates. I met talented children whose dreams are limited because they were born into poverty. Her voice became stronger. I did not go there because I hated this palace. She looked at her father. I went there because I love this kingdom. For a moment, nobody spoke. Even some nobles looked uncomfortable. Because her words were difficult to reject. Prince Cato quickly interrupted. Beautiful words. Amara looked at him. But words do not rule kingdoms. Exactly. She nodded. That is why I brought evidence. The courtyard changed instantly. Prince Cato's expression shifted. Evidence. Elder Bacco stepped forward. The old advisor carried the cloth bag. The king recognized him immediately. Bacco, the entire palace reacted. Many people believed Elder Bacco had disappeared years ago. The king looked shocked. I thought you were dead. The old man bowed. I allowed people to believe that, Your Majesty. Why? Elder Bacco looked at Prince Cato. Because I discovered something that placed my life in danger. The atmosphere became tense. Prince Cato's face became serious. What nonsense is this? Elder Bacco ignored him. He opened the bag. Inside were old documents, royal agreements, financial records, letters carrying official seals. King Ezeki stepped forward. What are those? Elder Bacco looked at him sadly. The truth about the problems affecting this kingdom. He handed the first document to the king. The king read it carefully. His expression changed. What is this? Elder Bacco answered. Records showing that certain officials have been secretly taking money from development projects. Everyone gasped. The king looked through more papers. There are names here. Elder Bacco nodded. Yes. Prince Cato stepped forward. This is a lie. Elder Bacco looked at him. Is it? The old man pulled out another document. This one shows payments made through private accounts, connected to people close to the royal family. The king looked up slowly. Close to the royal family. Elder Bacco remained silent. He did not need to say the name. Everyone understood. Prince Cato's anger grew. You dare accuse me? Elder Bacco replied calmly. I accuse nobody. He looked toward the king. I only present the truth. The courtyard became filled with whispers. Amara watched her uncle carefully. For the first time, she saw something she had never seen before. Fear. Prince Cato was afraid, not because of the accusations, but because the evidence was real. The king continued reading. Then his hands began shaking. Cato. His voice was filled with disappointment. Prince Cato immediately responded. Brother, you cannot believe this. The king looked at him. I trusted you. And you should continue trusting me? Cato stepped closer. Someone is trying to destroy our family. Amara listened carefully, because she had learned something during her time away. People who were guilty often did not defend themselves with truth. They defended themselves with emotion. They attacked the person revealing the truth. Prince Cato turned toward Amara. Is this what you learned in the village? She looked confused. What do you mean? That you can return after months away and accuse your own family. Amara shook her head. I did not accuse anyone. She pointed toward the documents. The evidence speaks. Cato laughed. You think villagers and an old retired advisor can decide who deserves power? Amara's expression hardened. No. She stepped forward. The truth decides. Those words silenced him, because they sounded like something a ruler would say, not a young woman who once doubted herself. The king looked at his daughter, and for the first time, he saw not just his child. He saw the future queen. Later that evening, an emergency council meeting was held. The most trusted leaders of the kingdom gathered inside the royal chamber. Prince Cato was present. Elder Bacco was present. Amara was present. The investigation began immediately. For several hours, officials reviewed the documents. Every piece of information was examined. Every name was questioned. Slowly, the truth became clearer. Several officials had been secretly working with Prince Cato. They had been redirecting money meant for villages, schools, and hospitals. The suffering Amara witnessed in Luanda was not just caused by bad luck. It was caused by corruption, a system designed to benefit the powerful while ignoring the weak. When the meeting ended, King Ezechi remained seated. He looked older than he had that morning, because betrayal from enemies was expected. Betrayal from family was different. Prince Cato stood quietly. For the first time, he had no speech, no excuse, no manipulation, only silence. The king looked at him. Why? That single word carried years of pain. Prince Cato slowly looked up. Because I was tired. The room became quiet. Tired of what? Being invisible. The king stared at him. You had everything. No. Cato shook his head. You had everything. His voice became bitter. You were king. He looked at Amara. She was the beloved princess. Then he touched his chest. And I was always the person standing behind both of you. Amara listened carefully, because although his actions were wrong, she understood something. Pain could explain a person's choices, but it could never excuse cruelty. Prince Cato continued, I spent my entire life watching people praise you. He looked at Amara. You never had to fight for respect. Amara answered quietly, That is not true. Cato laughed. You were born with a crown. She looked at him. But I still had to learn how to carry it. Those words affected him, because they were true. Amara had not been perfect. She had made mistakes, but she had chosen to grow. Prince Cato had chosen resentment instead. The investigation continued for several days. Many officials were removed from their positions. Some were arrested. Others confessed. The kingdom learned the truth. And something unexpected happened. The people did not turn against Princess Amara. They respected her more, because they saw something rare. A royal person who admitted mistakes. A future ruler who was willing to listen. A princess who had walked among them not for publicity, but to understand them. Weeks later, King Ezechi called Amara to his private chamber, the room where she had left the letter months earlier. The same place where her journey had begun. He looked at her with pride. You changed. Amara smiled. I had to. The king shook his head. No. He smiled. You chose to. She sat beside him. I thought leaving the palace would make me less of a princess. The king looked at her. And Amara looked outside the window. I discovered it made me understand what being a princess truly means. The king smiled. For years, he had wanted to protect his daughter. But now, he understood something. The best way to prepare someone for leadership was not to protect them from every hardship. It was to allow them to understand it. Several months later, the kingdom prepared for a historic ceremony. A ceremony that would change everything. Princess Amara would officially be named the future Queen of Akwala. But before that day arrived, she had one final decision to make. A decision that would surprise everyone. Because Amara knew that becoming queen was not only about taking the throne. It was about changing the kingdom that had changed her. And her first announcement would reveal whether she had truly learned the lessons from her journey. The day of Princess Amara's official ceremony arrived with a celebration unlike anything the kingdom had seen in many years. People traveled from distant villages to witness the moment when the future queen would be introduced before the entire nation. The streets of the capital were decorated with flowers and colorful fabrics. Musicians played traditional songs. Children carried small flags with the symbol of Akwala. Everyone wanted to see the young woman who had disappeared as a princess and returned as a leader. But unlike previous royal ceremonies, Amara did not want the day to be about her. She wanted it to be about the people. Before stepping into the ceremony hall, she stood alone for a few moments. She looked at the royal dress prepared for her. It was beautiful. Made from the finest material, decorated with symbols representing generations of rulers. Years earlier, she would have looked at that dress and only seen beauty. Now she saw responsibility. She remembered the farmers in Luanda. She remembered Emeka and his sick mother. She remembered Momatola sharing her simple meal. She remembered the workers who struggled every day while powerful people ignored their pain. The crown no longer represented privilege. It represented duty. Elder Bako approached quietly. "You are thinking deeply." Amara smiled. "I am remembering." The old man nodded. "Good leaders should remember." What if I fail?" "Elder." Bako smiled. "Every good leader asks that question." "Really?" "Yes." He adjusted his robe. "The dangerous ones are those who believe they cannot fail." Those words gave her confidence. Because she understood something important. A perfect ruler did not exist. But a ruler willing to learn could change everything. When Amara entered the ceremony hall, everyone stood. The crowd applauded. King Ezechi watched his daughter walk toward him. His eyes became emotional. He remembered the young girl who used to run through the palace gardens. The girl who asked endless questions. The girl who refused to accept simple answers. And now she was standing before him as a woman ready to lead. The ceremony began. Traditional leaders offered their blessings. Elders shared words of wisdom. The royal council officially recognized Amara as the future queen. Then it was time for her speech. Everyone became silent. Many expected a traditional royal speech. They expected promises of greatness. They expected words about power and success. But Amara surprised them. She stepped forward and spoke honestly. "For many years, I believed leadership meant standing above people." The crowd listened carefully. "I believed being a ruler meant having answers to every problem." She paused. "But I was wrong." The nobles looked surprised. A future queen admitting she was wrong was unusual. Amara continued. "Leadership is not standing above people." She looked toward the crowd. "It is standing among them." The people became quiet. "I left this palace searching for my kingdom." She smiled slightly. "But I discovered that my kingdom had always been here." She pointed toward the people. "In the hands of farmers. In the hearts of mothers. In the dreams of children. In the courage of ordinary people who continue fighting every day." The crowd listened with emotion. Amara continued. "I cannot promise that every problem will disappear overnight." She looked around. "I cannot promise that leadership will always be perfect." Then she placed her hand over her heart. "But I can promise that I will never stop listening." The crowd erupted with applause. Even people who had doubted her began seeing her differently. Because she was not pretending to be perfect. She was promising to be responsible. After the ceremony, Amara immediately began working on reforms. Her first priority was improving life in rural areas. She remembered exactly what she had seen. The first project was a healthcare program that created small medical centers across villages. The goal was simple. Nobody should have to choose between sickness and poverty. The second project focused on education. She created scholarships for talented children from poor families. She believed intelligence existed everywhere. The difference was opportunity. The third project focused on farmers. She introduced programs that allowed farmers to sell their products directly instead of depending on dishonest middlemen. These changes did not happen easily. Many powerful people resisted. They had benefited from the old system. They wanted things to remain the same. But Amara was no longer the princess who avoided conflict. She understood that doing the right thing was not always the easiest thing. One evening, while reviewing documents, one of her advisors warned her. "Your Highness, some nobles are unhappy." Amara looked up. "Why? They say your reforms are reducing their influence." She nodded. "I expected that." The advisor looked surprised. "You are not worried." Amara smiled. "I am worried." She returned to her papers. "But fear cannot be the reason we stop helping people." The advisor smiled. "You sound like Elder Barco." Amara laughed. "I will take that as a compliment." Months passed. Slowly the kingdom began changing. People noticed. Farmers had more opportunities. Children returned to schools. Villages received more support. But Amara knew there was still much work to do. A kingdom could not be repaired in a single year. It required patience. One afternoon, she received an unexpected visitor. Commander Darius. The same man who had come to capture her in Luanda. The guards wanted to stop him. But Amara allowed him to enter. When he stood before her, he looked different. Less confident. More humble. "Your Highness." "Commander." There was silence. Finally, Darius spoke. "I came to apologize." Amara studied him. "For what?" "For following orders without questioning them." She remained quiet. He continued. "I believed loyalty meant obeying powerful people." He lowered his head. "But I learned that true loyalty means protecting what is right." Amara appreciated his honesty. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I was wrong about you." He looked at her. "I thought you were a spoiled princess who ran away from responsibility." He paused. "But I saw the truth." Amara asked. "What truth?" Darius answered. "That you left the palace because you wanted to become worthy of the crown." Those words touched her. Because that was exactly what her journey had been. Not escaping responsibility. Preparing for it. Amara offered him a position in the royal guard again. But with a condition. "You will serve the people first." Darius bowed. "Yes, Your Highness." Years later, many people still talked about the day Princess Amara left the palace disguised as a servant. Some called it foolish. Others called it brave. But everyone agreed on one thing. It changed the kingdom forever. Because she discovered something many rulers never understood. A crown does not make someone a leader. A title does not make someone wise. And wealth does not make someone valuable. Character does. Kindness does. The willingness to listen does. The courage to admit mistakes does. Princess Amara's journey began because she wanted to understand her people. But in the end, her people helped her understand herself. She learned that a servant could teach a princess humility. A poor village could teach a palace about humanity, and the people with the least power could sometimes hold the greatest wisdom. Years after becoming queen, Amara often visited villages without announcing her arrival. She still wanted to hear directly from people. She still wanted to know their struggles. She still remembered the promise she made. Never stop listening. One day, while visiting Luanda again, she saw a familiar old house. Mama Tola's house. The old woman was no longer there. She had passed away peacefully many years earlier. But the village had built a small garden in her memory, a place where children gathered, a place where people rested, a place that represented kindness. Amara stood there quietly. She remembered the old woman who had welcomed a stranger without knowing she was a princess. The woman who shared her food, despite having little. The woman who taught her that wealth was not measured by what someone owned. It was measured by what someone gave. Amara smiled, because that lesson had become the foundation of her reign. She returned to the palace that evening and looked at the crown sitting on her table. For a moment, she touched it gently. Then she smiled, because she finally understood. The crown was never what made her special. The person she became while living without it was. And that was the greatest discovery of all. Years continued to pass, and the story of Queen Amara became one of the most remembered stories in the history of Akwala. Parents told their children about the princess who left behind a life of comfort to understand the struggles of ordinary people. Teachers used her journey as an example of courage. Leaders studied her decisions. But those who knew her personally understood something even more important. Amara was not remembered because she was born into royalty. She was remembered because she chose to become better. Many rulers before her had inherited crowns, but Amara had earned the trust that came with hers. Every year on the anniversary of the day she left the palace, the kingdom celebrated what they called the Day of Understanding. It was not a celebration of a princess. It was a celebration of a lesson. A lesson that power without compassion could destroy. A lesson that wealth without kindness meant nothing. A lesson that true leadership began with listening. During one of these celebrations, an elderly farmer approached Queen Amara. He bowed respectfully. "My queen." Amara smiled. "Please stand. There is no need to bow every time we meet." The farmer laughed. "Old habits are difficult to change." She smiled. "What brings you here?" The farmer looked around the crowded village square. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For remembering people like us." Amara looked surprised. "I did not do anything alone." The farmer shook his head. "That is exactly why people respect you." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Many powerful people want everyone to remember what they have done." He smiled. "But you always remind people that others helped you." Amara became quiet, because that was true. She had learned early that no person succeeds alone. Every person is shaped by the people they meet. Mama Tola, Madame Zora, Elder Bako, even those who challenged her, even those who hurt her. Every experience had built the woman she became. That evening, Queen Amara returned to the palace and walked through the same halls where she had grown up. The palace looked the same. The golden walls, the beautiful gardens, the grand rooms. But she was different. She no longer saw the palace as a place separating rulers from people. She saw it as a place that carried responsibility. Her father, King Ezeki, had retired several years earlier. He spent his remaining years peacefully, enjoying time with his daughter and grandchildren. Before his retirement, he gave Amara one final piece of advice. Never allow people to convince you that kindness is weakness. She remembered those words often. Because throughout her reign, there were moments when kindness was tested. Some people believed a compassionate ruler was easy to manipulate. They were wrong. Amara had learned that kindness and strength were not opposites. A person could forgive and still demand justice. A person could listen and still make difficult decisions. A person could care about others and still stand firm. Years after Prince Cato's betrayal, many people wondered what happened to him. After the investigation, he was removed from power. However, Amara refused to allow anger to control her judgment. Some expected her to punish him harshly. They expected revenge. But she chose something different. She ordered that he face a fair trial. The evidence was presented. The truth was revealed. And justice was served. But she also allowed him the opportunity to rebuild his life away from politics. Many people questioned her decision. Why show mercy to someone who betrayed you? Amara answered, because justice is about protecting society, not satisfying anger. Those words became one of the most quoted statements of her reign. Because people understood something. She was not forgiving because she was weak. She was forgiving because she refused to become like the people who had hurt her. Years later, Prince Cato sent her a letter. It was the first time he had contacted her since leaving the capital. The letter was short. It contained no excuses, no demands, only an apology. He admitted that jealousy had consumed him. He admitted that he had spent years blaming others for his own unhappiness. He admitted that he had lost everything because he believed power was more valuable than relationships. Amara read the letter quietly. Then she placed it among the many important documents she kept. Not because she wanted to remember his betrayal, but because she wanted to remember the danger of allowing bitterness to control the heart. Life continued. The kingdom continued growing. And one of Amara's greatest achievements was something she considered simple. She changed the relationship between the palace and the people. Before her reign, many citizens viewed the royal family as distant, important, powerful, but unreachable. Under Amara. That changed. She created regular meetings where citizens could speak directly with government representatives. She encouraged leaders to visit villages before making decisions. She required officials to experience the realities of the people they served. Some complained, some resisted. But slowly the culture changed. The kingdom became stronger because leaders finally understood that listening was not a sign of weakness. It was a source of wisdom. One evening, many years after becoming queen, Amara sat in the palace garden. She looked at the sunset and remembered the young woman who once left this place wearing servant clothes. She remembered how afraid she had been. She remembered wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But now she understood. Sometimes the greatest journeys begin with uncertainty. Sometimes people must leave behind comfort to discover purpose. Sometimes the things we fear losing are the things preventing us from becoming who we are meant to be. A young princess had entered the village searching for the truth. But the truth had changed her. She discovered that the poorest person could have the richest heart. She discovered that a person with no title could have great wisdom. She discovered that a crown was not a reward. It was a responsibility. And most importantly, she discovered that people do not follow leaders because of what they own. They follow leaders because of who they are. Many generations later, children would still hear the story of Princess Amara. They would hear about the royal woman who disguised herself as a servant. They would hear about the village that taught a princess humility. They would hear about the betrayal that almost destroyed a kingdom. And they would hear about the leader who chose compassion over revenge. But the most important lesson remained simple. Never judge someone by their position. Never believe wealth makes someone better. Never assume power gives someone wisdom. A person wearing simple clothes may carry greatness. A person with little money may have a heart full of generosity. And a person sitting on a throne may still need to learn from those below it. Princess Amara discovered the world outside the palace walls. But what she truly discovered was something deeper. She discovered herself. And that discovery changed an entire kingdom forever.